How many times have you dreamed of this situation?
Hey, Vincent,
Yo,
I
what's
know
up?
it's Friday at 8 p.m., but I'm gonna need you to write up that report before you leave today. It should only take about 3 hours,
What?
maybe?
It's already 8 p.m. on a Friday. I'm late for my weekend trip already.
Well, that sucks, man. You better get to work quickly then, champ.
Well, actually, hold on. Did you know that after decades of the
Wait, who
employer
are you
having
talking
the upper
to?
hand in the labor market, a massive change is coming where the employees
There's no one there.
are now getting the power. So screw you, I'm going home. Ooh, just thinking about the interaction gave me so much anxiety. But thankfully, that dream could be a reality for you and millions of Americans out there because we're living through a period of the Great Resignation, where a survey showed a whopping 95% of workers are now considering quitting their jobs. So let's talk about it. What's happening, what led up to this, and why are people quitting, and what is the economic impact from all of this? The horrible chain of events from the past year led to an unpredictable paradox that we see today. And it all started back in 2020 with the illness where countries and economies completely shut down, leading to millions and millions of people getting laid off. The government sent out multiple stimulus checks to prop up the economy, but as the world started to return to normal, employers are finding it more and more difficult to rehire workers for several unexpected reasons, which we'll talk more about in a bit. And if that wasn't enough, employers are also facing the Great Resignation. In April, nearly 4 million people quit their jobs, but despite there being an all-time high of 9.3 million jobs available in the market, because in the past year, people had time to reflect and think about their work and life. And is this truly what they want to do for the next 20 or 30 years of their lives? Now, personally for me, I decided to quit my job last year in November because I started to realize that I felt like I wasn't doing much of anything and I was just helping the rich get richer. And I felt like I could just provide a ton more value in helping and serving others by teaching them personal finance, especially since that's my background, especially during a time when the wealth gap is widening between the haves and the have-nots. I also felt like I was losing control of my life because my employer in a way controlled my time. And I don't know if you know this, but in the finance industry, the hours are horrendous. And although the pay is good, if you actually divide it by the per hour worked, it's actually not that much. And especially in finance, not only do you work your 60, 80 hour work weeks, but you also are expected to work after work because yes, in the work culture I was in, you are expected to answer emails, your Slack messages, and even reply to stuff when you're out of the office. Long story short, I decided to quit, but unfortunately not in a blaze of glory like what this guy did. If you want to learn more about my story, I go into details over here. Quitting generally has a really bad connotation in society because people tend to think that you're lazy, you don't have grit, you can't stick through it, but honestly, I couldn't care less about what people were thinking about me. I knew what I wanted in life and I knew that that wasn't it. Now that you're caught up, let's actually start digging deeper into the rabbit hole and understand why so many people are quitting their jobs. And I gotta say, the more I researched into this, the more it started to make sense for me. But first, I appreciate if you could turn that like button into a beautiful blue for all the research and the time it took to make this video. The first reason is better opportunities. Because of the illness, many people were laid off and they suddenly had more time. They were started receiving stimulus checks in the mail, which encouraged people like me to take riskier routes such as entrepreneurship, especially now that you can start an online business with very, very low cost. If you're interested in starting, you can check out the top side hustles to start here. In total, Americans started 6.7 million new businesses since the illness began last March, which is an all-time record. So claps and hats off to everyone taking the plunge. I'm proud of you guys. But it's not just the entrepreneurship route. People also see more opportunity in the job market, especially with the record number of 9.3 million job openings in the United States. And obviously in an economy where lots of jobs are available, people would tend to leave their existing roles for better ones. The second reason is a higher salary. Since there is a labor shortage as the economy reopens, employers are desperately looking for workers. And I'm sure you've seen it driving past a McDonald's with a sign that says paying $50 for an interview, which is actually a pretty sweet deal if you think about it. Interviews take about 30 minutes, that's $100 an hour. I have around 15 McDonald's in a 5-mile radius, that'll be around 7.5 hours and I'll be earning $750. Just hold on for a bit. I'm gonna check out some McDonald's for some research purposes. And it's not just McDonald's raising wages either. We've seen companies increase their pay across the board with a record growth in wages in 25 years of 3% for private workers. And hourly companies like Chipotle are doing the same thing. So you no longer need to debate the existential question of, do you want to pay extra for guac? Because you'll probably get it for free now if you work there. And to answer your question, no. I never pay for guac. One thing the illness exposed was just worsening and worsening work-life balance as companies started to fire people, reducing the amount of workforce that just means the same amount of work, if not more, now has to be done by fewer people. 45% of workers found themselves working more hours at home, where 70% of newly remote workers have been putting in more time on the weekends. And surprise, surprise, loyalty and working harder does not translate to higher wages, because studies show that employees who actually stay in companies longer than 2 years get paid 50% less. So listen friends, on average, you are not rewarded for your loyalty even if you take on more work. The reality is you will get paid more by switching jobs. And number 4 is flexibility. Remote work has definitely gotten more popular the past year and allowed people to truly evaluate their priorities and experience a better quality of life. Like realizing they don't need to commute for 3 hours a day anymore, which by the way was me. They can eat lunch with their family, they can just have more general flexibility in life. And people love it because studies show that 72% of people prefer a hybrid remote office model and 30% of people would quit if they had to return to the office. And the benefits for the employers are actually really massive too. A study by Stanford found that working from home actually increased productivity by 13%, and 22% of workers said that they were happier with their jobs. But here's where it gets really interesting, which is the economic outcome of the Great Resignation, which is not what you expect. I think without a doubt, if you look at the media, everything is showing that the economy is not looking too good. There are concerns of rising inflation, new illness variants, economies are not at full capacity, and many see the Great Resignation as a negative sign in the labor market. But I personally think that people quitting in a way is actually a positive sign, and stick with me here because it shows that people are more confident about their future. They are confident that they can take the risk to quit, start their own business, or join a brand new company that values them more. Where people were not optimistic about the future was during the peak of the illness, where we actually saw record low numbers of people quitting. And all this is leading to a shift in power, because as soon as you decide to quit, the power shifts from the employer to the employee. And given the mass exodus, I think employees are going to be using it as leverage to ask for better work arrangements and benefits and flexibility. And chances are, once those benefits, those beneficial norms are established, it's going to be very, very difficult for employers to claw that back, meaning that it might enter a new golden age for workers. But at the same time, some of these businesses will be unfortunately worse off. And the ones I'm thinking about are like local small businesses like food carts and local restaurants that operate near office buildings, because these businesses get a large majority of their revenue from workers going out to eat for lunch. And if a majority of these people stop going to the office, then they're gonna lose a huge chunk of revenue. So although there are pluses on one side, it's always gonna be an economic trade-off across the board. But if you are thinking about quitting, here's one piece of advice. Just because everyone else is quitting doesn't mean it's right for you. You'll still need to evaluate your financial situation that you're currently in, make sure it makes sense for your case. And if you're in debt, and if you have responsibility for other people's lives, these are some of the questions that you want to ask. If you do take the plunge, just please make sure you have enough emergency cushion to withstand any hard times that may come. But on the bright side, with a record number of jobs available, even if you do quit now, it should be relatively easy to find a new gig. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you guys stayed until the end, you guys are the real ones. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter so I know you guys are the real ones. Also, here are some pretty cool offers that you can get free money and also support the channel at the same time. You can get 2 stocks valued up to $2,300 with Webull, or get $10 in Bitcoin for free with Coinbase. All these links are down below. And also, by the way, if you are unfortunately impacted by the labor market and you're feeling financially behind, you should check out this video over here. It's a really important message that you definitely should hear.